What's going on YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here to not talk about sports cards. Today we're going to do a little what CGC 9.8's have I been buying / mail day / recent pickups / stuff. So I got a few new books into the house. Some I've sneak peeked on a couple live streams or on Instagram or on Twitter. There's a couple that I haven't fully revealed yet. So I wanted to mix that in, and then also just figured I kind of go through my stack, if you will, of my recent purchases since I've kind of dove back in to the wonderful world of graded comic books. So before we get into that, YouTube stuff down below, like, comment, subscribe. You guys know the drill by now. So first up on the list, the first one that kind of started me down this path to comic book investing. I present to you New Mutants 98. All of these are CGC 9.8s. All of them are direct editions, the whole entire stack that we're going to go through. This one happens to have the custom label with a little Deadpool holding up the 9.9 up there. It's cool. Some of the CGC custom labels are actually pretty fun. And I do actually look for them a little bit more than non-custom labeled stuff. I'm not going to lie. So this was the first one that I jumped into, and we've talked about the reasons why on the channel a bunch. First appearance of Deadpool. I got it for $1,200. They're about $3K right now. I've had this for maybe 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. I can't remember exactly when I got it. And I've been doing most of my buying in Facebook groups and off eBay, actually, not on eBay. Though I have bought a couple on eBay. So, but yeah, I got this for $1,200. There's about 3,300 of them in a CGC 9.8, which in my opinion is not a lot. In the comic book world's opinion is a lot. So that's the first one, and probably the biggest price wise by far. And like I said, I've showed this one on the channel a few times before. So next is an X-Men book from the early 90s. I've been trying to stay away from getting too modern, though there's a couple things in here that are modern-ish. This one kind of goes hand in hand with the Deadpool to a degree, and that is X-Men #4, the Jim Lee run. First appearance of Omega Red, which you can kind of see his hand a little bit there on the cover. I do not remember what the CGC census is on this one, and I don't remember exactly how much I paid for this. I bought this one before they increased. I believe these go for around $400 right now, $350, $300. Don't quote me on that. But first appearance of Omega Red, who's rumored maybe to be in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I bought it before that even came out, that rumor came out. Regardless, pretty much anything with X-Men across the top is a big spec book right now because X-Men are going to be coming to the MCU. This was one of the lower, in air quotes, dollar ones I picked up, kind of low risk. Plus, I love this era of X-Men anyways, so this was almost more for PC than it was for myself personally. I've showed it on the channel before. It is not in this stack. I have X-Men 11 from this same run, which is one of the most classic Jim Lee covers. I also have the 4 X-Men #1s, which from an investment standpoint are pretty worthless, but they combine together to form one big cover. That book was literally printed into the ground. So it's not investment level stuff. That was once again more for PC. This one actually has a little bit of investment potential just due to the Omega Red first appearance. Chasing villain first appearances gets a little sketchy, but you never know. The next one's a weird one. I threw it in just because I kind of wanted to talk about it. I don't know that it's investment level per se, but they're really hard to find. Team CGC 9.8 has talked about this one before. I actually purchased this one a while ago as well, but these do not come up for sale very often. And I'm just a big X-Men fan, and I love the Saturday morning cartoon on Fox Kids. This is X-Men Adventures #1. It is the comic book based off of the cartoon. So this is technically the first appearance of Morph, if anyone remembers the cartoon, because Morph was a creation strictly for the cartoon and never appeared in the comic book before. And he shows up in this because it's based off the comic book. The fun thing about this one is, last I looked, the CGC census on this is like 30. Yeah, you heard that right, 30. I don't know how much of it is that people just never thought to grade it, or how many of them just got destroyed because they were probably just thrown at kids, because it was geared off of the cartoon, not the mainline X-Men story. But like I said, I really like the cartoon. I picked this up. I think the last one sold for around $175. I think I paid about $160 or $170 for mine. But these are very tough to find. Like I said, I don't think it's investment level per se. I don't see Morph showing up anytime soon, but I see a lot of nostalgia for the cartoon. The cartoon is what a lot of people associate with the X-Men because that cartoon was extremely popular. So this is just a fun one. Like I said, I don't know how investment level this is, but I really like this one. What's next? Okay, we've seen this one on the channel before. We're going to venture in the Spider-Man land. Secret Wars #8. I bought this one on eBay for about $600. They're currently floating between $800 and $900 for a direct edition. This is the story on how he got the black suit. Not the first appearance of the black suit, but the story of how he got it. The way things lined up that year. The mainline issue of Spider-Man ASM 252, Amazing Spider-Man 252, which is technically the first appearance of him in the black suit, along with Marvel Team Up. I forget the issue number with Daredevil. But actually came out a few months before this one, and then the Secret Wars storyline showed how he actually got it. So it's a classic cover. Very well regarded. I actually think it's still a little undervalued at $800 with Amazing Spider-Man 300, the first appearance of Venom, constantly going higher and higher. It's kind of pulling the other symbiote suit stuff along. I think it's a pretty safe investment, just period, because it's Spider-Man, it's black suit tied to Venom. And there's also, and this is not why I bought it, but it would elevate it to a whole nuclear level. If Tom Holland ever shows up wearing this thing, this and the next one we're going to talk about will go to the moon, to steal a popular internet phrase. Straight to the moon if Tom Holland shows up in the black suit, which I just have to assume happens at some point in time if he keeps making Spider-Man movies. So, but the one that goes hand in hand with it is previously mentioned Amazing Spider-Man 252. I have not done a formal reveal of this yet. I have showed it on a couple lives and I've hinted at it before, but I don't think I've done it in like an actual mail day style video. Once again, same, everything I just listed off for Secret Wars #8. Same thing for this, except this is the true first appearance. I got this for $1,500 about 2 weeks ago. They're at about $1,800 to $2,000 right now for a direct edition, with newsstands going a little bit higher. Oh, I should mention Secret Wars census, I think, is a couple thousand, a few thousand actually. It's actually kind of high. This one is only 1,100. And this is the true first appearance of the symbiote and also a classic cover. I really, really like this book. It has gone up a ton. This was like a $600 book back in November, but you know, it is what it is. I think it has room to go. That's why I bought it at $1,500. Once again, if Tom Holland shows up wearing the black suit, it's game over. Game over, man. What is next? The most recent pickup. And about as modern as I want to get. This is not Miles Morales. I would go into Miles Morales, but he's super expensive. But it is Miles Morales' running mate. I've been on the hunt for this one for a while because I'm a huge fan of this character. This was one of those ones that was on the list that I kept going for and kept missing out on. And I can tell that the prices were about to jump again. It was around $1,000, and I could tell it was about to jump to $1,500. Because as soon as one would get posted for around $1,000 to $1,100, it would instantly get snapped. And then a couple people posted for $1,200, and they would instantly get snapped before I could either get the money together or pull the trigger on it when I did have the funds available. And what I am talking about is Edge of the Spider-Verse #2, first appearance of SpiderGwen, the second main character in Into the Spider-Verse. Extremely popular with the kids, if you will. CGC census on this, I think, is around 2,300-ish. Got to be careful on this one. There is a billion prints of this. There's a first print, a second print, a third print, a fourth print, a fifth print, and at least 2 to 3 variant covers. This is why I hate quote-unquote ultra-modern comic books. And this did come out in 2014. So it's not like, you know, yesterday, but it's not 1984, like Amazing Spider-Man 252. Anyways, I think this one's going to continue to go up. SpiderGwen's an extremely popular character. She's going to get pulled along with the Miles Morales hype. So if Ultimate Fallout 4 keeps going up, I think this is going to follow. I would stick to the first print and stick to 9.8. If you're going to go into something this modern, you don't want to play with 9.6s, in my opinion, because the ultra modern stuff is treated with respect, handled with care, etc., straight from the time that it gets into the comic book shop. So they should grade relatively well, which they typically do if you look at the CGC census reports. So I got this for $11.50 on Facebook, just in the nick of time. The guy was about to raise the price on it. He said, if it doesn't sell today, I'm raising the price tomorrow. And I said, sold for $11.50. And immediately, like later that night, one on eBay sold outright for $1,400. Another one sold for like $1,500. And this is basically a $1,400 to $1,500 book now, in the amount of time that it took him to put a shipping label on it. So, and I think it's going to keep going up. Like I said, as Miles Morales goes, I think this is going to go right along with it. And then heaven forbid if she actually shows up in an MCU movie or a Fox movie or whatever, the mix between the two with that weird situation. But I could easily see her showing up. If you're going to get Miles Morales, there's a good chance you're going to get Spider-Gwen. Plus, there's a push for female superheroes, and kids would absolutely eat her up. She is super popular, super popular. And then last but not least, I saved the best for last. I was super excited about this. I've been looking for this particular book for a month plus and could not find one. I hinted about this one somewhere. I don't remember if it was a live stream or a previous video or a post. I make too much content. I cannot keep track. This is an X-Men book from the early 80s. It is an iconic cover, an iconic story, and an iconic story run, and an iconic artist and writer run. So it's, I don't remember how many things that is, but that's like 5 for 5, 6 for 6, checks all the boxes. It's from 1980, I believe, and the census count in a 9.8 is 243, I think. So guesses down below for you comic book people. What am I talking about? It is an X-Men book, and I just gave you all the clues. So go ahead and guess. You should be able to guess it. As I move this out of the way, I will give you a hint. It is from the Dark Phoenix saga. And it is X-Men 133. I adore this. I'm a huge Wolverine fan. I've wanted one of these forever. I had been chasing it. As soon as they would get posted, they would sell for around anywhere from $700 to $800 is what they would usually comp out at. But they don't come up very often because there's only 243 of them. This is, for the non-comic book people, this is part of the Dark Phoenix run, which is one of the most iconic X-Men runs. It is a Chris Claremont story, one of the probably icons of the X-Men verse. And then the artist, John Byrne, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was an iconic artist of his time, especially with his work on the X-Men. In addition to that, this is the first solo story of Wolverine, and it's kind of Wolverine's coming out party. Up until this point, Marvel really didn't know what to do with him, Claremont specifically. I believe, if my stories are straight on that. And this was the first time that they kind of figured him out, and he got his own solo story and was essentially the ultimate badass for the entire book. And the rest is history. Like I said, classic cover, classic story. It's part of the Dark Phoenix saga. It's part of this Chris Claremont run. There's only 243 of them. To me, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer. I saw it get posted for $775 with best offer. I was afraid I was going to lose out on it. I just straight bought it outright. I think one of the big problems, not problems, it's good for me, but I think what's happening right now, like something like this, they only sell about once a month. Like if you look at the one I bought, then prior to that, it was like 3 weeks, like a 3-week gap between sales of this book. People are just pricing it off of the last comp, not thinking, oh my God, the comic book market's exploded. I should probably tack on 20% over what the last one sold for, or just run the thing at auction. I have a feeling if I ran this at auction today, it goes for more than 800. I could be completely wrong on that, but with X-Men coming, and just this being a classic X book, this checks marks every box in my opinion. The fact that there's only 240 some of these is just like the absolute icing on the cake. I was shocked when I saw that census number when I looked this up, and I was one of the book before I even looked up the census report on it. And then when I looked that up, I realized this is why I can never freaking find one, because there's only 240 of them. So it's not a first appearance, but I would consider it a key for the previous reasons mentioned. This was as much for quote unquote investment as it was for PC, if you will. The Spider-Man stuff, like the Secret Wars 8, the ASM 252, I am not super tied to. I think they're good investments, but I'm not like, oh my God, I would never sell that. This would be the number one of I would not sell. I would sell a lot of things in this pile before this. This and probably Edge of the Spider-Verse 2 would be the two that I would hold on to before most. Oh, and New Mutants. Well, New Mutants 98 is a tricky one. And New Mutants 98 would probably be the three that I would hold on to the most. This one being number one. Now, I do have another one that I just bought. I'll feature it in a future mail day, but I'll talk about it really quick. That is Uncanny X-Men 282, which is the first appearance of Bishop. That book started to heat up a lot lately, and I wanted to snag one before it went more crazy. It used to be around 250-ish. It shot up to 300 to 400. I got one for 325 off eBay Thursday morning. Actually, I closed the deal on that one. Ended up being 350 with taxes and shipping, but I feel okay about that. Any X-Men first appearance like that for a semi-reasonable price seems like a good get right now. I think I checked the census on that one. There's like 900 or 1,000 maybe, which seems pretty low for an early 90s book. But technically it's his cameo, but it has him in all his glory on the cover. So that one's kind of the one everyone wants. I think that's anything like that late 80s, early 90s X-Men stuff with first appearances that hasn't really taken off yet. Like I said, that one's starting to, and I could see it continuing to grow. And then once again, heaven forbid, Bishop shows up in an actual movie. He's a fairly popular character. I always wanted that one because it's one of, when I was a kid, I was like 12 when that book came out. I distinctively remember buying that off the rack. It was one of the first or second comic books behind X-Men #1 that I bought. Like walked into the store, bought off the shelf. And that was kind of like my entry point into X-Men as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, whatever year that it was. So that's all I got for you guys today. Like I said, kind of wanted to run down some recent pickups, what I've bought, why, and my thought process behind it a little bit. So like, comment, subscribe. If you guys got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.